Hello and welcome again to another edition of Lost in Science, one of our final shows for the year. Just as usual, where too much science is never enough. On the show this week, I'm going to try and cover some of the hundreds of stories that we don't get to cover because we try our best to cover weird and unusual stories, but there's so much going on in science all the time, we don't quite manage to cover everything. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. I'll leave that till later in the show. Chris has brought in our friend George Aranda.
Yes, George is host of the popular Science Book a Day website, or founder thereof. He is going to review us the top science books for 2015. Time to think about gifts for your scientifically ready, inclined people for Christmas, I imagine, if you want to get into those
or Newtonmas if you don't believe in those things.
Newtonmas if you don't believe in those things. We won't go into that because what Newton believed, that would just blow your mind.
Claire.
I'm actually going to be talking to Naomi Francis today about International Toilet Day, which was a couple of weeks ago. I'm gonna put us all down the toilet. We are going to be talking about the importance of toilets.
Cool. Well, stay tuned for all that and more on the show.
Okay, you are listening to Lost in Science, and this week we have with us Dr. George Aranda, founder of the Science Book a Day website, where he reviews, maybe not every day, but science books to fill your day. Welcome to Lost in Science, George.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Now, it has been a while since we've had you in, and there have been many, many good science books released. So, looking back on 2015, do you have any particular favourites that people should be thinking about as they're looking for something to read over the coming break?
Yeah, no, I'm always interested in what new books are coming out and about, and that sort of thing for the book, the actual website itself, as well as the Big Ideas Book Club I run in the Melbourne CBD as well. Mm-hmm. And so I brought 3 books that I have featured on the website because I feature a book every day, even if I can't review it every day. Yeah. And so 3 of the books I featured I thought were very interesting and kind of cutting edge in their own particular way. The first one is Life on the Edge: The Coming of Age of Quantum Biology by Jim Al-Khalili and John Joe McFadden. One, because I just love the name John Joe McFadden, but also because I think the actual the idea of quantum biology is really of the moment. John Joe McFadden had been researching it for some time, and 10, 15 years ago when he wrote his first book, Quantum Evolution, there wasn't really much research at that time that indicated that quantum mechanics had anything to do with biology. But since then, more research has come about, and he wrote this book with popular science communicator in the UK, Jim Al-Khalili, trying to really look at how quantum mechanics might be that link between the non-livingness of matter and how it can be changed into matter. So can be changed into something that's alive. And so they use the book as a way to try and explore some of these processes. And so each chapter is about a particular aspect of biology that can be explained through quantum biology, such as photosynthesis. Mm-hmm. They look at the idea of magnetoreception, which has been quite popular in the last couple of years, looking at how birds can actually migrate using and are able to navigate using magnetic fields. The idea that we can really understand how a rose smells can be explained to some extent by quantum biology, as well as how genes are actually able to copy themselves with such great precision. So they introduce ideas to biology such as quantum tunneling, superposition, quantum entanglement, and that sort of thing.
Okay, interesting.
The second book, which I thought was quite interesting, is Adventures in the Anthropocene, A Journey to the Heart of the Planet We Made by Gaia Vince. Now, we were talking a bit about this before the show, and I think it's quite an interesting book, one, because it won the Royal Society Book Prize this year.
That's is that the prize for best science book in the world? Is that how it works?
Arguably, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and it was won by Gaia Vince, which was actually the first prize, the first time the prize had been actually won by a woman.
Wow.
And I thought the book was actually quite interesting because for the last 10 to 15 years, the books that have been written about climate change have largely been about, does it exist? And I think we've reached the point where we can say, yes, it does. And it's due to what we do as humankind. And so Gaia was interested in actually following up on the stories of what people are doing around the world to try and actually come to terms with climate change.
So we're talking adaptation, in this sense, adaptation to climate change.
Yeah, so what they're doing, strategies they're enacting as opposed to evolutionary adaptation.
Because the term Anthropocene is that's basically, I've heard that quite a bit, saying that we've entered a new era, geological era, effectively, of the Earth's history, where it's controlled by human activities rather than natural forces.
Yeah, and that's the idea that she's trying to explore in the book, and what people are doing at some levels, institutional or at a governmental level, what is being done, but she was actually more interested in the stories of what people are doing to try and overcome the changes that are going on in the world. So she looked at a man who was making artificial glaciers in Nepal in order to irrigate crops, and also teaching themselves how to do these things by actually developing a network using Wi-Fi across the mountains in Nepal, which I thought was quite interesting. There's a man who's painting mountains, with mountains white, with the idea of attracting greater snowfall in the mountainous areas.
That's a lot of white paint.
There's also the idea that it's been successfully used in Bali to actually put an electrical current through reefs to actually help them grow. And this is being applied to the Maldives as well.
Wow.
And there's also a man who's trying to make islands out of rubbish in the Caribbean. So lots of different ways that people are trying to adapt to climate change. And the idea is to look at a bit of positivity, especially in times at a government level where we're not really doing very much at all because of climate change. Now, the third book that I thought would be interesting to look at is Neurotribes, The Legacy of Autism and the Future of Neurodiversity by journalist Steve Silberman. Now, this is quite an interesting book. Similar to Adventures in the Anthropocene, we have an idea that's been around for a while. So we've spent the last 10 to 15 years arguing that autism has been, created by vaccines and the use of vaccines. And now we have a lot of research saying that's not the case. And so what Steve tried to do is actually go back into the history of autism, which has quite a unique history. A lot of the ideas that we have about autism are due to Leo Kanner, who in 1943 came up with the idea of autism. And he was really someone who felt that autism, you couldn't do anything about it, that people wouldn't be able to live productive lives. Whereas Hans Asperger was a Viennese scientist, a pediatrician. And he was someone who had looked at it in a much gentler kind of way. So he had looked at young boys who had difficulty making friends, who still had some ability to socialize through conversation, but he called them his little professors, because if you actually asked them about something they were interested in, they could tell you how much they knew, and to quite a significant degree. But the problem is that Asperger's work was largely ignored in the United States because it was in German in the first place, so people hadn't heard about it. And by the time it was the late 80s, his work was actually translated into English. It created quite a different attitude to autism and the Asperger's spectrum. To autism and Asperger's syndrome. And so in the 1990s, there was a change in the way people started to think about it, and that's starting to come through in the way that we're thinking about autism and Asperger's syndrome.
Right.
And so, it provides us with a kind of a more holistic way of looking at autism. So it's not just something that you're sentenced with, but we're starting to come to terms that people in autism are in our everyday lives, and we don't really need to think about the ideas that we're normal and they're not, and promoting a neurodiversity perspective where we can accommodate a range of different cognitive styles that people have.
Okay. That's actually, I believe, something that's been applied to other areas of disability as well. The idea that it's society that has to adjust rather than the people have to be cured or...
It is, I think it's a more person-centric kind of way to look at things, rather than just saying this is your diagnosis and that's it. And
also accepting the fact that all brains are different as well.
Yeah, very, very true.
Okay. How are we doing for time? Mr.
It's
Mr.
8 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for those recommendations, George. That is something to look out for. Now, so we can find your Science Book a Day at sciencebookaday.com. Is that correct?
That's it.
And how can people join your book club if they're in Melbourne?
If you're in Melbourne, you should find us on meetup.com. It's called Big Ideas Book Club.
Excellent. Well, one to look out for. So thank you again, George.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
My guest today is Naomi Francis, PhD candidate at Melbourne University at the Nossal Institute for Global Health and all-round lover of the miracle that is the modern toilet, or loo, crapper, whatever you want to call it. Welcome, Naomi.
Thanks, Claire.
Naomi, as the wonderful children's book tells us, everybody poops, right?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. But what the kids' book fails to ask is why we need to do it in a toilet. Can you shed some light on this matter?
That's a good question, Claire. Maybe I'll start with a question for you instead.
Oh, the tables have turned.
The tables have turned. Well, where did you poo this morning? If you pooed this morning, that is.
Yeah. I pooed in my porcelain throne in my house.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with poo is that it's full of bacteria and viruses.
Yeah, which can make you diseased.
Yeah, and quite ill.
I'm quite ill.
And while we don't have much of a problem in the industrialised developed world, because we have toilets in places where lots of people don't have toilets, the spread of diseases and viruses that lead to stuff like diarrhoea are really common. And as a consequence, diarrhoea is the second largest killer of kids under 5. And there's other consequences to not having toilets that aren't just about the sort of microbial aspect of it. For women in particular, not having a toilet means that they're extra vulnerable when they're going out to the bush to defecate. They'll have to wait till it's dark. That means they're way more vulnerable to sexual violence. It also means that, say, places like schools and health centres, if they don't have toilets, it deters people from either attending school or
attending
going.
school,
Yeah,
of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially for women in terms of menstrual hygiene management. Lots of women around the world miss lots of days of school for that reason.
So our toilet is linked to our education, it's linked to our health,
Yep.
it's linked to our communities, it seems.
Absolutely. And income
really
and
intrinsically
economy as well.
Oh, really?
Well, absolutely, because if people are getting sick, then they're not going to be at work. If their kids are sick, then they're not going to be at work. And the amount of money we have to spend, or not us, but those people have to spend on getting themselves better, medication, that's a huge cost.
Yeah. And also we talked about bacteria and viruses, but the spread of worms and the malnutrition of children, if they do have worms, they're not, am I right in saying they're not absorbing nutrients?
Yeah. So especially in young kids when that's really important, because they're growing obviously at that point.
Yeah.
But the other thing is getting certain types of parasites at that age means that their intestines are damaged, and it means that the absorption of nutrients later in life is also hindered. So yeah, nutrition is a big one.
Nutrition is a big one, and that's an ongoing thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So I can see a lot of potential benefits to mankind for keeping our poop as far away from us as possible.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that it stinks.
That's sort of like nature's way of telling us, is it?
To not go anywhere near it.
To not go anywhere near it.
Absolutely.
That's really handy then.
Yes, it is really handy.
Okay, so most people in Australia would be pooping in a toilet just like me this morning.
That's right.
But I'm interested, is pooping in a toilet, is it a cultural phenomena? Is it something that we have to learn, or is it a cultural practice? Are there ways to change it if people in other countries don't have the same cultural practice?
It's absolutely a cultural phenomenon. I mean, pooping in a toilet or having a toilet is not an innate, natural thing. That's definitely a cultural thing. It's pretty universal that people are disgusted by poo. So people will try not to do it near the place where they hang out, so they won't do it near the house if they can avoid it.
Yep, don't shit where you eat, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Or anything else.
That's a universal truth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, as far as we can know truths, Claire. But definitely having a toilet is a cultural thing.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, when you grow up in a place that has toilets, it seems like a natural thing until you go to a place where there aren't any toilets, and that's where challenges arise, because trying to get people to defecate in one place is quite difficult.
What sort of research is WaterAid and the Nossal Institute doing in Timor around toilets?
Yep, so it's actually part of a much bigger project. There's an NHMRC funded project being run out of the Australian National University, headed up by Archie Clements, and they're trying to look at whether a community-based water sanitation and hygiene intervention, which is being done by WaterAid.
Now, water, sanitation, hygiene also happens to be the best acronym of all time, right?
Exactly, because it contracts to WASH.
Because it contracts to wash, and it's all about water.
Washing!
Washing. Okay, sorry, I just had to get that off my chest. Yep.
So, great, I can just say WASH now.
Yep, you can say wash now.
So, yeah, this team running out of the ANU are looking at whether a community-based WASH program, which is being run by WaterAid in Timor, means that people get lower reinfection rates of worms. And so it's an epidemiological study. And the research I'm doing through the Nossal is attached to that project. And so I'm trying to look at what exactly it is that WaterAid are doing over there, and what are some of the outcomes of their program, not in an epidemiological sense, but more in terms of how do people's knowledge, attitudes and practices around sanitation, and a little bit to do with hygiene and water, how do those things change over time as a result of the program that WaterAid are doing?
That sounds like a huge project that you're going to have to continue on for a very long time. Is that right?
Well, the particular technique that WaterAid use for sanitation, which is called community-led total sanitation, is widely understood to have really quick results. So it was, appropriate for me to be able to look at it within the 3 years of my PhD.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bigger project run out of ANU is quite a lot longer, but the bit that I'm looking at is much shorter. Yeah.
So when you say quick results, what would you deem as quick, and what results would you see within the community?
Yeah. Maybe I should explain what community-led total sanitation is.
Yeah.
To start with. So traditionally, people who have worked in this field have thought that the reasons people don't have toilets, or the reasons why they're defecating in the open, is because they can't afford toilets, or they don't have access to materials, or maybe they don't know how to build a toilet, or they don't know what a toilet is. And so the traditional approach has been to go in and build toilets.
Yeah.
And anywhere in the world where this has been done, you can see abandoned, perfectly beautiful toilet blocks.
Locked up, probably.
Either locked up,
Yeah.
or being used for something else. I've seen ones used as kitchens, because the toilet bowl is a great place for making a fire, and a pot can sit quite nicely on top. Other places, sometimes that toilet block is the driest place in the village, so it's a good place to keep stuff like cow pats dry, because you need those for fuel. So there's all sorts of other reasons that people find.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this approach, it came out about 10 years ago in Bangladesh, led by a guy called Kamal Kar. And the idea with the approach is that you motivate people to build their own toilets, or to stop open defecation, through inspiring feelings of disgust and shame around open defecation. So that question I asked you earlier about where you defecate is a classic CLTS technique. They sort of get the community together and get them to draw a big village map, and then mark on the map where they pooed, how much they pooed, get them to talk about how much it smelled, maybe go round and have a look at a few of the sites where they've pooed that morning. So
Sounds gross.
it is
Yeah.
gross. And the idea is that people feel gross,
gross.
and therefore want to change their behaviour.
And then
And-
can change their behaviour in the way that they want to.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, in its purest form, I guess, people will figure out a way to do that on their own. So using whatever toilet design they want, whatever materials they have. In practice, it's a little bit different, but that's the idea. And the reason it's thought to be rapid is because that change is if the technique works well and the facilitators run it well, then the change can be almost instant. People will start building toilets the next day. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In theory, yes.
In theory,
Yep.
when it works,
When it works, it's amazing.
it
Yep.
works amazingly.
We cover a lot of science on our show every week, but obviously there are a bunch of things we miss out on, which I thought maybe I would see how much of that I could get covered. Now,
Can we start the timer now? Or
You could-
The timer and the Benny Hill music, I think you
Yeah,
need to.
yeah.
Benny Hill music, really? No, so I was just going to go. I went back to the start of the year and I went, wow, a lot of stuff has happened this year. So I'm going to go through some of it. And if you want to interject, you can give it a try. But
Okay.
You'll have to catch my eye.
Okay.
So I'll shut
Okay.
up.
All right.
So we'll go back to January 2015 and we'll just start. There was a study in January that showed that some proteins can assemble other proteins without DNA instructions, which is a big breakthrough in biology there. They mapped the genome of the longest lived mammal, which is the bowhead whale, lives for over 200 years. 2014 was declared the hottest year on record by the Japanese Meteorological Agency. An earthquake in Ohio from 2014 was shown to have been caused by fracking.
I think we did cover that
We
one.
did cover
Yeah,
that
we did
one.
talk
I
about
just
that
thought
one,
I'd
yeah.
throw that in there again
Oh.
because that's something that keeps coming up in Australia as well. A compound is developed that tricks mice metabolism into burning fat, makes them think they've just eaten so that they start breaking down fat so they can eat more food. New Zealand researchers observe mitochondrial DNA moving between mouse cells and triggering cancer in adjacent cells.
All right.
Which was a pretty unusual thing that they'd suspected but had never observed
They'd never
before.
seen mitochondria doing that before.
No. A neutron star was observed slipping out of view due to space-time warping, and they think it's due to reappear visible from Earth in 160 years' time.
Where'd it go?
It's still in the same place, you just can't see it because the space-time around it has been warped.
Okay.
Watch this space.
Watch this space. Iranian and Argentinian researchers made a biosensor using graphene sheets. That was, the first time that's ever been done. Duke University announces for the first time that lab-grown contracting human muscle tissue has been achieved for the first time. So they've actually got muscles contracting in a petri dish.
So you know how they were trying to make those hamburgers grown in a petri dish?
Yeah.
If they made human muscle cells in a petri dish and you ate that, would you be a cannibal?
Yes.
Really?
It's human tissue. Technically, you would be a
You
cannibal.
would, technically you'd
Okay.
be.
Now, if you ate
Not that I want to, I'm not saying I want to,
human-flavored
I'm just-
tofu, would you be a cannibal or just not really? That was on the market for a while back there. Astronomers theorise the existence of two Earth-sized objects at the edge of the solar system, which we can't see.
I think that was a controversial call, that one.
Yeah, that one may have not been. That was based on just observations of other
Yeah.
planetary movements. So not sure exactly what's causing that, but that was a theory that was published in January. Scientists mapped a roundworm brain and used the map to program a Lego robot, which can now seek food for no apparent reason
Does the
and avoid
Lego robot
obstacles.
go into your digestive system?
No. It's a much larger.
Ow.
Yeah.
It's like
It's like standing on a
stepping
Lego,
on Lego.
but no, but
Much
way
worse.
worse.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, what is the point in a Lego robot seeking food? I'm not entirely sure, but it's capable of
What do they eat?
other bits of plastic, I don't know, fluff, dust from the carpet. So scientists also effectively slowed down the speed of light by changing the shape of photons. I'm not exactly sure how that worked, but they reckon that they slowed down light by passing it through a mask that changed the shape of photons and made it move slower. A new owl species was described in the Middle East. You would think there was not a lot of new flora or fauna to be found in the Middle East.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? But they described a new species of owl called the tawny desert owl. And also, chemists described the reaction of alkali metals with water. When you drop alkali metals into water, they create an explosive.
Huge.
We didn't actually understand how that worked.
Oh, cool.
They
Oh,
thought
really?
it was hydrogen being released from the water
Yeah.
and exploding. No, it's not. It's actually a different reaction going on with the with the metals.
The only thing I knew about that is your teacher told you not to do it.
Don't
Yeah,
do it. Yeah,
don't
don't
do
do
it.
it, which
Yeah.
made you really, really want to do it back in
Yeah.
chemistry class. So that's the stories that jumped out at me from January. February, the British government was the first government in the world that allowed babies to be created from 3 adult partners. Later on this year, that was shown not to be necessary. They could use a different treatment to overcome mitochondrial diseases. That was the purpose of doing
That was the purpose.
Um,
Not just to see if they could, but
not just to see if they could,
Right.
but actually to get around inherited mitochondrial diseases.
Yeah.
Researchers used biodegradable nanoparticles to kill brain cancer cells in animals and prolong their lives. Single atom thick transistors made of silicene, which is a form of silicon, were constructed. Pretty impressive. The birth date of the first stars was revised to 560 million years after the Big Bang, which is 120 million years later than was originally thought.
Okay.
Isopropanol fuel is extracted from GM bacteria, which has the same efficiency as photosynthesis for taking energy from the sun and turning it into chemical energy. That was the first back in February. NASA launched a deep space observatory to give early warnings of solar flares, which will be very useful if ever there's a solar flare heading our way, because most of our electronics will get knocked out by something like that.
What if the satellite gets knocked out?
Well,
You'll
we'll know.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
know.
Yeah.
It's like a
there was-
canary.
There was a mouse study showing e-cigarettes have most of the same health effects as tobacco smoking. So useful information there. Psychosis risk is 3 times higher for users of potent cannabis strains, according to King's College London research. Scientists drafted a document urging widespread and wide-ranging discussion before we attempt to communicate with any alien species we may suspect exist in the universe. They were just a bit worried that we might attract attention to ourselves that would be unwanted.
Was that an international decision?
It was it was a whole bunch of scientists signed a draft, including Elon Musk.
And
course he
Hawking,
did.
I
Of
think.
course Elon Musk was in there.
Should we do that now, or when if they get a message, then we have a discussion?
Well, we should have a discussion before we
Before
send
calling
any
back.
specific messages to anyone.
A bit late.
It might be a bit late.
Yeah.
The Mars One project selected a final 100 candidates for their one-way proposed mission to Mars. A gene regulator called HARE5, that's H-A-R-E, which has got actually nothing to do with hares at all, like the animal hares. It's just that's the code for the gene regulator. Is shown to make human brains larger, so it can actually figure out who can predict potentially who's going to have a larger brain and who's not. A drug-resistant malaria strain was identified on the Pakistan-Indian border in February, which is a bit of a worry because malaria is still a huge killer around the world.
And we're only just now developing effective drugs.
So a drug-resistant strain is not really good news. But in good news, the number of wild giant pandas has increased 17% in the last 10 years, according to Chinese researchers.
Oh, that's good.
So they've actually helped.
Any reason? Do they know what they're doing right?
Well, they're protecting habitat and
That's great news.
having captive breeding programs and releasing them into the wild. So March, scientists capture an image showing light as both a particle and a wave. You might have seen that picture and
very
been
interesting.
That was
very,
beautiful.
very confused by it, by what it actually meant. But light is a particle and a wave at the same time. Some researchers formed organic compounds in the same conditions as outer space using chemicals that they've commonly found in space. So they think they can make DNA and RNA using just chemicals that happen to be floating around in space, which is an interesting development on the origin of life.
Long way to go to get those things.
Well, comets may have brought them to Earth, they formed on the way down, potentially. A 2.8 million-year-old jawbone puts the earliest human ancestor 400,000 years earlier than previously thought.
When you say earliest human ancestor of
in the genus
species?
Homo, so
Right.
actually related to human beings now, but in the same genus.
Are we counting Homo nodeli in this?
Well,
Naledi.
that's
Naledi.
more recent than 2.8 million years, but
Okay, yeah.
possibly. The Dawn spacecraft went into orbit around Ceres, which is the first dwarf planet ever visited by a human-built spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
A 30-year-long study of the Amazon jungle revealed it's slowly losing its ability to sequester carbon because trees are dying.
And it's believed
faster
to
than
become
they're growing.
a net carbon emission emitter
Yeah.
due to the burning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Woolly mammoth DNA was successfully spliced with elephant DNA and shown to be functional when it was spliced, so they can
Right.
potentially grow some sort of hybrid elephant woolly mammoth.
Elephant Park, just like Jurassic Park.
Paleozoic Park, yeah.
I don't know, Ellamammoth. They could have
An Ella mammoth.
an Ellamammoth,
A woolly
Mammothant.
elephant.
Mammothant.
A mammoth.
Mama Fan. It sounds like a zhuzhy Melbourne restaurant.
And
Mama Fan.
in the meantime, so they've spliced woolly mammoth DNA, but they've also reduced the potential habitat for such creatures. The Arctic sea ice reached its lowest level, lowest recorded extent according to US data, and the highest ever recorded temperature was recorded in Antarctica, which was 17.5 degrees Celsius.
Pretty warm for Antarctica.
That
That's
is-
very
balmy.
warm for Antarctica. So sea ice melting and high temperatures in Antarctica, both recorded in March of 2015.
That's opposite ends of the Earth, aren't they, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but similar conditions. So there's some stories that some we didn't cover and some we briefly touched on. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that we didn't catch up with in 2015, and I will put links to all of those on our podcast.
So many questions, Stu, but thank you for reading all those papers for us.
No worries at all. Well, that just about wraps it up for this week on Lost in Science. We've heard of some great potential gift ideas from George. Thanks for coming in, George.
You're very welcome.
And we've also heard a lot of crap about toilets from Claire.
Hey, it's interesting and it's very important, and got some runs on the board.
Yeah. Claire's certainly sitting on the throne, I think, of the stories tonight.
You can try all you like to paper over the cracks in that story, but thanks for joining us. If you'd like to know anything more about any of the stories, several dozen of them that we covered quickly this week, please get in touch with us. We have a Gmail account, lostinsci@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter and on Facebook. Lost in Science is recorded at the studios of 3CR in Melbourne and broadcast across Australia on the Community Radio Network with the generous assistance of the Community Broadcasting Foundation. As I said, you can get in touch with us all those other means, or you can just tune in again next week when, once again, all of the team come together and get lost in science!
Thanks for listening to a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online.